decision made on January 6th to send the National Guard here to defend
I support
the
the decision that President Trump made and requesting the National Guard that was denied.
So you do not.
President Trump
you do not support the decision.
You do not for the National Guard
to send the National Guard here to defend the Capitol. I think that speaks to the worry that many Americans have that there is a double.
This may look like a routine budget hearing, but it's actually a stress test for how political power is being protected in Washington. What's really being tested here is whether federal authority serves the Constitution or whoever happens to hold office. This raises broader questions about whether public resources are being used to defend democratic institutions or political interests. In this video, we'll break down how a single exchange reveals a deeper shift in how accountability and force are being framed inside the federal government.
Senator Murphy, you're up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. I wanted to build on some of the questions that Senator Schatz was asking, just to try to build a fact predicate for some of the tough spending decisions we're going to have to make here. Just to confirm, I heard you say with respect to the gift of the plane from Qatar that we do not yet have a signed MOU with the government of Qatar. Is that right?
Correct. We're in the process of working through that.
And did you also say we don't have a signed contract with the company that is going to do the work? Or did you say that we have a contract, you're just not willing to disclose the terms?
The terms should not be disclosed of anything related to an aircraft of this type.
So in 2018, when the contract was signed with Boeing to do the upgrades or the new contracts for Air Force One, the terms of that contract were disclosed. They were made public. In fact, it was the Trump administration that issued a press release giving the total as $3.9 billion. Are you saying this time around, even after you sign the contract, you're not going to make public any of the terms of the contract?
I wasn't involved in that previous administration decision, but we're happy to take a look.
The Air Force testified before the House that that contract would likely deliver the new Air Force Ones by the 2028 timeframe. It doesn't stand to reason that you will be able to retrofit the plane from Qatar much sooner than 2028. So I'm trying to understand what the gap is that we're trying to fill. If this contract ends up being $500 million and the gap only ends up being 6 months, that doesn't sound like a wise investment for this committee to make.
Senator, I would defer to the expertise of the Air Force as far as timing of modifications and when that would happen, but there's also been delay after delay after delay on the Boeing side, so I don't know that's a firm fixed date yet, unfortunately, can be counted on.
So obviously the underlying question here is what is going to happen to the plane at the end of Trump's presidency. The president said on May 12th that this plane would be transferred to his presidential library at the end of his term. Is that your understanding of what is going to happen to this plane?
The president said that. That's my understanding, although I would look at what comes out of the MOU.
But why would we ask the American taxpayer to spend upwards of $1 billion on a plane that would then only be used for a handful of months and then transferred directly to the president? That doesn't sound like a wise use of taxpayer dollars.
A lot of the capabilities, as you know, Senator, of that particular platform are and should remain classified. So there are reasons why you might modify, even for a short period of time, an aircraft to ensure the safety and security of the President of the United States.
But when do you believe that those upgrades would be made? How long would the president have it before it got transferred to his personal possession?
That would be a determination of the Air Force that would take hold of it and make those modifications within whatever time window they believe gets it to the place where it need to be.
Yeah, I think this is extraordinary, Mr. Chairman. We're talking about a pretty massive investment of appropriations dollars into a plane that the Secretary is saying is currently planned to be transferred personally to the president. There's a lot of other pending needs that we need to fund. This would seem to be low on the list. Mr. Secretary, one final question. Obviously, you know that there is a concern in the public about a double standard that is applied to protest, sometimes protest that turns violent. The president, when he came into office, issued pardons to the individuals that attacked the United States Capitol, including those individuals who beat savagely police officers. You have deployed the National Guard and readied Marines in a way that many people think is unnecessary given the state and the local resources. So maybe let me ask the question this way so that you can assuage people's concerns that there is a double standard. The National Guard was deployed here on January 6th, and that was a decision made by the Department of Defense. Do you support that decision? Do you believe that that was the right decision to deploy the National Guard? to defend the Capitol on January 6th?
All I know is it's the right decision to be deploying the National Guard in Los Angeles to defend ICE agents who deserve to be defended in the execution of their jobs.
But I think it's important to know whether you think it was also important to have the National Guard defending the United States Capitol when there were violent protesters here on the president's behalf, to make sure that folks know that you care about protests, whether it's against the president or on behalf of the president.
Senator, I was in the Washington, D.C. National Guard when that happened and was initially ordered to go guard the inauguration of Joe Biden. But because of the politicization of the Biden administration, my orders were revoked. And ultimately, because of the politics that were being played inside the Defense Department by the previous administration.
But do you support the decision made on January 6th to send the National Guard here to defend
I
the
support
Capitol?
the decision that President Trump made and requesting the National Guard that was denied.
So you do not.
President Trump
you
did
do not support the
requested
decision.
support
You do not
for the
just
National
support the
Guard
decision
in
to send the
advance
National
and was
Guard here
denied.
to defend the Capitol. I think that speaks to the worry that many Americans have that there is a double standard, that you are not willing to defend against attacks made on our democracy by supporters of the president, but you are willing to deploy the National Guard to protect against protesters who are criticizing the president. That's not how our taxpayer dollars are supposed to work. They're supposed to be used to defend the United States, no matter the nature of the political affiliation of the protesters. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The moment came quietly, almost deceptively so, buried beneath procedural language and bureaucratic deflection, but its weight was unmistakable. Senator Murphy asked a simple, direct question: whether the decision to deploy the National Guard to defend the United States Capitol on January 6th was the right call. It was not a rhetorical trap. It was not a partisan flourish. It was a test of principle. And the response that followed, hesitant, evasive, and ultimately dismissive, told a story far larger than the hearing room itself. Instead of a clear answer, the secretary pivoted. He shifted the frame away from Washington and toward Los Angeles, away from the Capitol and toward ICE, away from the moment when American democracy was under siege and toward a present-day political battlefield. It was a maneuver that revealed something profound: the unwillingness to treat all challenges to democratic order with equal seriousness, and the growing tendency to measure security decisions not by law or constitutional duty, but by political alignment. Murphy was not asking about strategy. He was asking about values. He was asking whether the Department of Defense believed that the seat of American self-government deserved protection when it was under pressure. And when that question was met not with affirmation, but with a deflection into unrelated deployments and partisan grievance, it exposed a fracture in the way power now sees its responsibilities. This hearing was supposed to be about oversight and budgeting. It was supposed to be about aircraft contracts and appropriations. Yet it became something far more consequential. It became a window into how political loyalty is beginning to shape decisions that once belonged to institutions, not individuals. When Murphy spoke of a double standard, of one set of demonstrators being met with restraint while another is met with overwhelming force, he was articulating a fear that has been quietly spreading across the country: that justice is no longer blind to who is doing the protesting. The secretary did not deny that the Guard was sent on January 6th. He did not deny that the Capitol required protection. Instead, he reframed the moment through the lens of political grievance, claiming that his own orders were changed because of politics inside the Defense Department. The implication was clear. What should have been a matter of defending the Republic had become, in his telling, just another chapter in a partisan struggle. That is the danger when power begins to personalize institutions. When the military, the Guard, and the Department of Defense are viewed not as neutral guardians of the Constitution, but as tools within a political contest, every decision becomes suspect. Every deployment is no longer judged by whether it protects the nation, but by whom it appears to benefit. Murphy's final words cut through the noise. He reminded the room that taxpayer dollars are meant to defend the United States, not any particular political faction. He made clear that protection should not depend on whether demonstrators support the president or challenge him. In that moment, he was not speaking only to the secretary. He was speaking to a country watching its institutions strain under the weight of loyalty tests they were never meant to bear. This exchange matters because it reveals how easily the language of security can be repurposed into the language of allegiance. It shows how the machinery of government, once designed to stand above politics, is being pulled deeper into it. And it reminds us that democracy does not collapse in a single dramatic instant. It erodes when those entrusted to defend it begin to hesitate. The Capitol is more than a building. It is a symbol of the idea that power flows from the people, not from force. To question whether it deserved protection when it was under pressure is to question something far more fundamental than a single decision. It is to question whether the system itself still commands equal respect from those sworn to uphold it. As this hearing closes, what remains is not just a disagreement between a senator and a secretary, it is a mirror held up to the American system. A system wrestling with whether it will continue to treat law, democracy, and public institutions as sacred, or whether they will be bent to the will of whoever holds the most political influence at a given moment. History is shaped not only by the choices we make, but by the choices we refuse to make. When leaders cannot bring themselves to clearly defend the foundations of democracy, that hesitation becomes a signal that something deeper is at stake. The question now belongs to all of us. Will the institutions designed to protect this republic remain above politics? Or will they become just another battlefield in a never-ending power struggle? Stay informed, stay vigilant, and support our work to hold power accountable. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA.